Hey guys, we're here with a special guest today, Genaro, who finished top 4 at remote regionals the past weekend with Dinomorphia. So maybe I'll just hand it over to you in terms of what your thoughts are on this deck for the format.
I wouldn't really consider it like necessarily like meta. It can definitely compete with the meta. The decks that do really seem to struggle with the most, depending on if they go first or not, branded. I don't really have much of an out to Yubel, and so Yubel's definitely the deck that really hurts this. Otherwise, I don't really have any problem with the meta decks. So let's get into the deck profile, and as I go around into it, I'll explain my choices. For the monsters, we have three Dinomorphia, Therizia. Therizia is the best monster in the deck. As you know, when she's normal summoned, you can set one Dinomorphia card directly from your deck. And if you have 2,000 life points, she gains 500 attack. When she's destroyed, you can banish a trap and special summon one of your level 4 or lower Dinomorphias. So she just gets you more field presence with your Dinomorphia trap cards. I run two Diplos. Some people run three. Uh, through testing, three, you don't really want to open her, so two's the right setup, but you absolutely need two at the very least for fusion material. But if you do normal summon it, it's basically a foolish burial slash foolish burial goods. When it's normal summon, you send one Dinomorphia card from your deck to the grave. When this card's destroyed, you can banish a trap and special summon one level 4 or lower Dinomorphia, which you just summon Therizia. And then if your life points are 2,000 lower, it does 500 damage. This card was actually really good throughout the event. I see people playing two. I actually think three is the way to go with Wannabe. It's basically another Pot of Prosperity deck. At the end phase of either player's turn, you can send her to the graveyard. For every unoccupied spell and trap card your zone your opponent has, you reveal the top card of your deck. You can pick a trap card amongst it and set it. So it's like Product Prosperity, except it can't be asked because it sets directly instead of adding it. So that's really really good. You can only use one of this card per turn. Sadly, there's been times I actually opened two during the event, and you can't use two. So then we run three Pot of Duality. I don't typically special summon on my turn, so this card doesn't really hurt me. It's a three dig into the deck. I run two Prosperity. So, some people run three. I decided to run two. With the premise that my extra deck is really, really tight. I don't want to if I either open it or don't open it, and if I don't open it, I don't typically want to see it later in the match. But if I do, sometimes it's okay, but most of the time it's not. Because by that point, I've pretty much used my entire extra deck. We run three Frenzy. This one is pay half your life points. You use one monster from your extra deck, one monster from your main deck to fusion summon. And if your opponent activates a effect, you can banish it, and you don't take life point damage for the rest of the turn. Effect damage for the rest of the turn, which is all the normal traps have that additional effect. You have Domain, which allows you to use materials from your deck, hand, or field, and it has that additional effect. For grind game purposes, I went from 1 to 2. Dinomorphia Alert. It allows you to pay half your life points to special summon up to two Dinomorphias whose levels equal 8 or lower. And then it has that, the additional effect to if your opponent activates, you banish it. The card that you want to see during the Yubel matchup, and it's still good in a lot of matchups, Soul the Supreme King. You can pay half your life points, special summon, ignoring summoning conditions from your extra deck, but ignoring then its effects are negated. One Supreme King Zark. Then while this card is in the graveyard, if your opponent activates a spell, you can banish his cost, discard, and one face-up Supreme King Zark from your monster zone. And then special summon up to each of one of the following, which is one fusion dragon, a Zig Dragon, Synchro Dragon, and or Pendulum Dragon. And you don't have to do all of them. It's just one of the following. So that's really really good. So you don't have to have an Exceed Dragon if you don't want to. None of the Exceed Dragons are really even all that great, if I'm being honest. Uh, um, so yeah, enough of that. Extra copies of all my normal traps. I'm running 2 trap trick for obvious reasons. I mean, this is not the first thing you want to activate if you can, not do it, because it does lock you into one trap afterwards, after it resolves. But otherwise, if it can be the last thing you activate, it's a really good card just to be an extra copy of basically every normal trap that's in your deck. 2 Ferret Flame. Really, really good card because you're always cutting your life points in half and to the point where you'd have less than 1,000. So what this essentially does is, if your opponent's monsters on field are higher than your life points, your opponent themselves, meaning even if the card's unaffected, they're the ones choosing. So it bypasses that. If the combined attack of all monsters your opponent controls are higher than your life points, make your opponent shuffle face up monsters they control into the deck, except monsters with 0 attack, so that the combined attack of all remaining monsters they control are less than or equal to your life points. But because your life points are always going to be so low, it pretty much is a complete board wipe for their monsters. So it's really, really good. I kept going between 2 and 3 for a long time. I decided on 2 because Trap Trick is just an additional copy of it. And if you open this and you don't open up the other stuff, or you open up multiple copies, it actually does end up being a bad thing. We have 1 Dinomorphia Brute. It's a non-target destruction. So what it does is pay off your life points, destroy 1 Dinomorphia monster you control, 1 card your opponent controls. When your opponent activates a card or effect, and with the 2,000, if you have 2,000 left life points thing, you can banish it. But it's a non-target destruction, so it's really, really good against Voiceless Voice and a lot of other decks. So once you destroy your Dinomorphia and stuff, so it's really, really good. It bypasses a lot of things. This next card, a lot of people keep asking me about, and that's 3 Mind Drain. It's a continuous card. You pay 1,000 life points. Neither player can activate monster effects from the hand. A lot of people play Debunk, which Debunk is also a really good card you can use instead, but I like Mind Drain because it's constantly up on the field. And that stops cards like Tempai Dragons because they activate in the hand to special summon themselves. It stops Spirit of Yubel, the Grave Squirmer they use. It stops Ash Blossom and basically all the other hand traps that you definitely don't want interrupting your plays when you're trying to do them. So it's just really, really good, and it's always fit up. Next we have 3 Dinomorphia Intact. So when a monster effect is activated while you control a face-up Dinomorphia card, not monster, so card. So it can also be chained if you have going into the activating frenzy and they chain Ash, you can just chain this and it stops it. So that's really, really good. Pay half your life points, negate the activation of that card, and if you do, destroy that monster. Also, when you take battle damage this turn, the damage taken becomes half of your life points at that time. So a lot of people say when you have 1 life point, they'll be able to kill you, but half of 1 is 50, and then in Yu-Gi-Oh, if you didn't know, your life point rounds up. I've tested this in a lot of situations, and it's been ruled by my several head judges for me this way. So at 1 life point, what you'll do is you go down to 50, and then you go back up to 1. I mean, depending on the event, it might be ruled different. So always ask your head judge for that event. So as long as it's this been activated, they can't really kill you that turn. Also, while your life points are 2,000 less, if you would take battle damage, this is during damage calculation. So unless they banish this card before damage calculation, this can't be stopped. You can banish this card as cost, and you would take no damage from the battle damage. That battle damage. And then we have 3 Iron Thunder. I really, really like this card. When a spell or trap card is activated or a monster effect on the field is activated, you can pay half your life points, negate the activation if you destroy that card, and then destroy any other cards in the same column as the destroyed card that you negated. Not the same column as this card was activated, but the column that that card was activated. And that are in the monster zones and spell and trap zones. So that's really, really good. It's free. So if your opponent doesn't watch where they're activating stuff and you negate it, they can lose every other card in that column. I mean, it does affect you too, but the funny thing with that is if if they blow up your Rex terms or anything, you just get free cards to come back from the grave as well. So can work in your favor. Then we got, the 3 Solemn Judgment, self-explanatory. Now for the side deck, 2 Lightning Storms, 1 Harpy for like rogue matchups or just going second cards in general. We got 3 D Shifter because it doesn't really hurt this deck. You're just going to activate it on your opponent's turn for going second. Then on your turn, you're just probably going to set 5, set 4, maybe summon something, set another card and pass. So you can play with it. 3 D Barrier. If you're up against a fusion matchup, you just got to take the sacrifice of whether after you establish your board, whether it's going to hurt you more to call fusions or not. But 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. You got big dudes. If they can't make their fusion plays, it's probably going to hurt them more. You can call Exceeds, Synchros against Tempai. It's just a really good card in general. One of the best going second cards this format, evenly matched. And I didn't get to use this but once, but it was really, 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 really good. And that's Eradicator. It's also a good against quite a few different decks this format, especially if you're going against certain rogue decks. It's really good against Labyrinth. It's really good against Pearly. It can be really good against Snake Eyes as well as Ubel. And just essentially a lot of different decks it can be really good against. It really depends on what variants they're running. So would I take this out? Maybe, but in theory, depending on what deck I'm against, it could be a really good blowout card against those decks. So for now, I'm going to keep it in. It did win me the matchup against one of the Snake Eye players and one of the Ubel players. Not the Ubel player, the Ritual Beast player. So I'm probably going to keep it in for now. And for the extra deck, we're running 3 Catch Regina. If I draw into it, one of them is a Pot of Prosperity target. What she essentially does is she'll lose attack equal to my life points, which is why we like to keep our life points low. Once per turn during either main phase, quick effect, you can pay half your life points, banish one of your Dinomorphia normal traps in the grave as cost. Then her effect essentially becomes that trap card's effect. Also, if she's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower Dinomorphia monster from your graveyard. Then we got the boss card that's essentially an active skill drain. Rex term. Your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters they control that have attack greater than or equal to your life points. Pay in mind it says your opponent, so it doesn't affect the monster, it affects your opponent. So even if the monster is unaffected, they cannot do it, still cannot do it, so which is really, really good. It has a once per turn quick effect. You can pay half your life points. The attack of all monsters your opponent currently controls become equal to whatever your life points are, which is really, really nice. And when he's destroyed, you can special summon 1 level 6 or lower Dinomorphia monster. Then we have 2 Stealth Burja. I never actually use this card except for Fusion Fodder. But so I never really have it come up otherwise, but its effect is while your life points are 2,000 lower, you can pay life points to activate trap cards or Dinomorphia monster effects. You can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. If this card is destroyed, you summon a level 4 lower Dinomorphia. Then we have 1 Predator Power. He's only in here because he's a really big 3600 beat stick, and he can be a free material for Eradicator. 1 Brave Eyes, the card I was mentioning earlier, that's really good against Ubel. When this card is fusion summoned, which he never is, you can change all monsters your opponent controls to 0. The effect I use him for is the only effect that he's actually good for is negate the activated effects of monsters with 0 attack, no matter where they're activated from, which that's the part that hurts Ubel. We got 1 Crystal Clear. Now he has 2 active effects that are really, really good. Once per turn when your opponent activates a monster effect, except during the damage step, he has a quick effect. You can activate this effect. Until the end of this turn, this face-up card is unaffected by your opponent's activated monster effects. He also gains the attack equal to the opponent's monster's original attack. So even if they're somehow lower or higher, he'll just gain the original attack, which is still really good. So also, once per turn, when a spell, trap card, or effect, meaning the effect of the spell or trap card, is activated, You can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Then we have Zark, and then if your opponent chooses not to activate a spell or trap card, you use Arcray, because Arcray tributes Zark away and summons itself, which is still really, really good, because he counts as Zark while on the field, so your Soul of the Serene King is never truly dead. Then we have Dolka. I used to run Dugaris over Dolka, but Dolka is just really good to have as a double monster negate in case you need it. And then we have Logia, which is a monster, the spell and trap and monster negates. And that's it for the deck, the extra deck side, and the main deck.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for the deck profile. Congrats again. Really enjoyed the explanation. Any last shout outs before we end the call?
Yeah, shout out to all my friends and stuff and fiance and everything that's been really supportive of me and helping me with the deck and everything. And shout out to Hakuna here for reaching out to me. I don't really get a lot of YouTubers that really come and talk to me about anything. So thank you for giving me the chance to do this deck profile for you. I really do appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. So thanks again and goodbye.